What's the most beeped up thing someone has told you about themselves after barely getting to know them? I used to work at an animal shelter and we had several people who would come volunteer to help out. One of the women who came there on a regular basis went to lunch with me. She was such a sweet woman. A little older than I was at the time. She proceeded to tell me that she used to go to the park and give old men blowjobs because she felt sorry for them. WTF? That is to animal shelter? What park? For research purposes. Of course. At 10:00 at night. I was at a rest stop and a guy came up to me and asked, how would you like to save a life? Tell me a joke and I may not kill myself. Wow. You got emotionally mugged. Energy vampire. Damn you, Colin Robinson. I sat next to this quiet kid in my Spanish class. He was awkward and had a subtle speech impediment. One day, I tried to spark conversation with him and he told me that he considered murdering his parents. Guess he really did not want to talk with. Guess that's one way to get someone to stop talking to you. LOL. I was doing my practice in a hospital. They brought a young man in the neuro clinic. He was my first patient. He was around 30 and he had fallen from a tree while working. He turned out to have a complicated neurological condition that had nothing to do with his fall. He was also diagnosed with severe depression. He was in there for months and no one ever visited him. The only time he felt a bit better was when I visited him and did some tests to him. He said, it's nice when you come and make me play with the colored toys and make me draw things. One day he was looking out of the window. When I came in he looked me dead in the eye and told me, you know, if the windows didn't have protective bars, I'd jump right out. It was the first time I'd heard such thing and I remember it ever since. It's truly horrible how many people with neurological disabilities or mental disabilities just get abandoned as soon as the family can get away with it. Lawyer here. Seen this many times. Even in wealthy families. I am from the mountains of New Mexico. We had mailbox uncles. These were the mentally ill members of wealthy Eastern families, New York, Boston, etc., that were sent to live in rural locations in New Mexico and their families mailed them monthly checks to stay. Damn, I wish my family would do that to me. I was seated next to a quiet kid on a high school band bus to a football game. He'd been in my band class for years. But I had never really spoken to him. He was the type who didn't fit into anything at school that I ever saw. I resolved to get to know him a bit and open up a conversation since we were going to be sitting by each other for a few hours. It was like a dam burst. That dude talked for the whole trip. At one point, he told me that his mom was really unhappy with his stepdad but couldn't afford to divorce him. And then he told me that his stepdad would get drunk and beat him with a stick. But he wasn't sure if his mom was also getting beaten and that scared him. There was a brief pause before he said, I never told anyone that before. Then he changed the subject completely. I must have been 17 or so. It shook me. Like. Obviously I was old enough to know that sort of thing happens. But too sheltered to think it happened to anyone I knew. I told my parents about it, seemed the right thing to do. I don't know what happened from there. He and I never really spoke of it again. I just looked him up on Facebook. Though. Looks like he's done really well for himself. I'm sure he appreciated your kindness. Happy that he is doing well for himself. Sometimes it helps to just let it all out. Even one time like that. It could have lifted a huge weight off his mind. You were a free therapist that day, LOL. Randomly met a fellow motorcycler at a gas station at 2 a.m. Told me he was going to confront his wife and her lover. Not right then. just in general. Then we rode the last 100 miles to St. Louis because he happened to be going the same way. I hope you didn't keep going on your way to his wife's house. I met a man at an airport once. I was there on layover, so I had some time to kill. I bought a book from the bookstore and went and sat at what my gate was supposed to be. I was 21 at the time, maybe. It was kind of crowded and there was a man in his 40s sitting next to me. We chatted for a bit. I was just entering a program for my PTSD. I can't remember how the conversation got started, but we ended up talking about mental illness, life, rebuilding after said trauma, and how sometimes we inactively choose or actively choose to remain in terrible situations. He mentioned to me how he was repeatedly molested from ages 8 to 13 by his Catholic priest. When his parents found out, his dad beat the priest until he had to be hospitalized. The mom and him ended up moving with the other siblings to a new state. And how he didn't recognize for over 10 years that his extremely rebellious teenage years, his drug use, his drugged up relationships, was because he was not processing the past. He gave me a great bit of advice that I ended up using. Sometimes what you really need is a change of scenery. He talked about how in his mid-20s he got therapy, and once therapy ended he moved. He packed what little he had and moved. Worked 2 jobs to put himself through college. Now on a few businesses. It is much happier and successful in his life. He made it a point to tell me that if you run from your problems, they'll always catch you. However, if you confront your problems, you're then free to go wherever you want. That was almost 10 years ago. And it made me really stick through therapy. And I took his advice and I moved. It was amazing. For a long while it was just what I needed. Unfortunately, isolation is putting me back into a pre-therapy mindset. And not too healthy. And I'm going back for more mental health work. But I still think of that layover I had at O'Hare Airport. Hang in there, bud. You've conquered the illness once. You can do it again. Some guy next to me on the bus once went into a long elaborate story about how he burned his house down for insurance money like 3 weeks prior. I wouldn't have believed it if his hands didn't have massive burn scarring. LOL. Dude probably just had scared hands and makes up a new story whenever someone stares at them. Used to ride the bus every day to get to one of my first jobs. Old dude on it had a removable section of his face. I probably heard about 30 different versions of how it happened when he caught kids staring. Oh. You look nervous. Is it the scars? Do you wanna know how I got them? Come here. Look at me. See. I had a wife, beautiful. Like you, who tells me I worry too much. Who tells me I ought to smile more. Who gambles and gets in deep with the sharks. Hey. One day they carve her face. We have no money for surgeries. She can't take it. I just want to see her smile again. I just want her to know that I don't care about the scars. So I stick a razor in my mouth and do this to myself. And you know what? She can't stand the sight of me. She leaves. Now. I see the funny side. Now. I'm always smiling. Like a dog chasing cars. Wouldn't know what to do with one if he caught it. Wanna know how I got these cars? Dog. Probably. Co-worker took out a client for a business lunch at a small town restaurant. He asks the waitress, "How are you?" To be polite. She proceeds to go on a 5-minute spiel about how terrible her ex-husband is and how he's ruining her life and how she feels like crap because of it. After she finishes, takes their order and leaves, the customer says, "So you must know her pretty well?" "Only well enough to say hi in passing." "Oh. So then that was just as awkward for you as it was for me then?" Yes. Yes, it was. This feels like a Parks and Rec scene. Like it a lot. Alternatively, that waitress is 100% Twyla from Schitt's Creek. I picked up a hitchhiker once that told me he left California after his wife died because the cops were asking too many questions. I dropped him off in the next town and he paid me with a beer and we parted way. Was his name Russell? Well, that night I lost myself to ruby red lips, milky white skin and baby blue eyes. My manager at my job in high school decided to tell us about her suicide attempt on my very first day. She was like, "One day, I decided to take some pills and end it all. I grabbed a pill bottle out of my mom's cabinet and took a handful without even looking at what it was and then lay down to die. I was so surprised to wake up in the morning perfectly fine. Confused. I checked the bottle to see what I had taken. Yeah. It was estrogen." I can only imagine the awkward silence from that story and how it ended.
Hey guys, if you like this video then smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel for more contents like this. And don't forget to press that bell icon to get notified for future videos. Thanks for watching. Click here to see more videos.